The LA Kings could have four very solid forward lines if that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been recapping the league for the past 20 years. It's one of the longest running hockey podcasts out there, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Now, when you look at the LA Kings projected forward lines, I think there's real potential for this group to be a very solid 1 through 4. As solid as the Kings have been in a while, maybe since the Stanley Cup years. It can be argued that none of the Kings forward lines for next season feature a truly elite player. For what it's worth, the NHL this past week put out a list of their top 100 forwards, and of the teams that finished in the top 3 of their division, like the Kings did, the Kings had the fewest players ranked in the top 50, only one. Of the 12 teams that finished in the top 3 in their division last season, the Kings were tied with the fewest number of forwards ranked in the top 100. They had 3. Adrian Kempe checked in at number 39. I think he should be somewhere in the 50s, but I wasn't shocked by where they had him ranked. He's one of the most underrated players in the NHL as far as I'm concerned. Kevin Fiala checked in at number 69, and Quentin Byfield was number 92 on the list of the top 100 forwards in the NHL, according to NHL.com. Now, I don't know what the exact criteria was. It doesn't really matter. And you can certainly argue that the LA Kings are maybe not legitimate cup contenders because they don't have at least one top 20 forward. That said, the Florida Panthers are the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. They didn't have a forward ranked in the top 10, one forward ranked in the top 20. Although they did have the most players ranked in the entire top 100, they had 6. Now, the Panthers clearly have a lot of talent, but they are able to obviously perform at a very high level in the postseason without, some of the elite players. A lot of really good players, but, they don't have that superstar necessarily. Now, maybe the Kings can be successful in that regard as well. Now, it should be pointed out again, for what it's worth, the Kings, again, only 3 players in this NHL's top 100 forwards, and it was tied for the fewest number of players that were in the top 100 of the teams that were in the top 3 in the division. The team they were tied with was the team that had the most points in the entire NHL in the regular season. The President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets also had just 3 forwards in the top 100. So, again, is it something that we might like to be better? Sure. But is it necessarily an indication that the Kings can't be a team that has a deep run in the playoffs? I would say not necessarily so. Now, the Kings, if they do have these 4 very solid lines, maybe that can overcome the lack of top-end elite talent. So let's look at the Kings' top line, at least on paper, what the top line likely will be listed as. Of course, that will be Andrei Kopitar centering Adrian Kempe and Andrei Kuzmenko. So, by the way, it might be a little lazy. Are we going with the A line here, the A team, something like that? It just makes too much sense not to do that, right? Anyway, Adrian Kempe clearly is the best player on this line. He's in his prime, 28 years old. He's a point producer. He's a goal scorer. He is also underrated defensively. The only issue with Kempe for this coming season that is potentially there is the contract situation. Now, if he's not signed before the season starts, or if the talks aren't seemingly going in the right direction, could that affect his production this season? He's never been in a position like this before. And if things get contentious with him and the organization, is there a chance that that could affect his play? I mean, he's a human being. Things that are going maybe not well off the ice in this way, maybe that affects the way he plays. I don't know. Look, hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully Adrian Kempe is taken care of in the way that he absolutely should be by the organization. And this is all behind us before the season even starts, or at least very soon after. And so that isn't a concern, because that's the only thing I can think of when it comes to Adrian Kempe and not him being, once again, probably the top forward on the LA Kings. As for Anze Kopitar, should be solid, even though he's about to turn 38 years old. His birthday is coming up on August the 24th. Has he lost a step or two? Sure, but speed was never the biggest part of Kopitar's game. He still has his smarts. He's still a great two-way player. He still has the ability to make players around him better, led the team in assists. And with a more stable, more dangerous pair of wingers on his line for the entire season, we hope, I don't think it's out of the question that Kopitar's assists and points could go up from where they were a season ago. And he led the team in assists and he was second in points. So we know, though, at some point, if Kopitar plays long enough, that father time will catch up with him. It catches up with everybody that plays long enough. But will it be this season? I don't think so, but I don't know so. And if this is probably his last season, or if this could be his last season, I have to assume he wants to go out on top or as close as he can. And maybe if he is still undecided on his future, his contract's up after this season, maybe he feels like he still has something to prove and he still wants to prove to himself and the organization that he can still be a key player. So I still feel pretty confident that going forward, this season for Anze Kopitar can be a very solid season. Now, the bigger if on this line to me is clearly Andrei Kuzmenko. Now, the Kings bring him in, has a nice stint with the team last season after being picked up at the deadline. To me, though, he's the biggest question mark on this line, and likely the key to this line being really dangerous and productive as a group. He absolutely surprised me last season. I did not think he would be nearly as big of a contributor as he was. One of the best pickups at the deadline this season, one of the best trade deadline pickups in recent memory for the LA Kings. Now, there's no doubt, at least to me, and I think probably a lot of people, that Kuzmenko exceeded expectations last year. Now, this year, the question is, will he meet the expectations for this coming season? I'm hopeful, but I need to see it. Now, I can't deny that a part of me is not thinking that, I'm not saying last season was a fluke, but it was 28 games, 22 in the regular season, 6 in the playoffs. It's not a full season. I would like to see Andrei Kuzmenko do what he did for the Kings last year over a full season. Now, I'm encouraged by what I saw last season. I'm also hopeful about Kuzmenko because he did seem like a great fit. Not only 5-on-5, but the power play. Andrei Kuzmenko, if he can do what he did last year, a full season on the Kings power play can really improve that unit. I feel good about the way Kuzmenko fit in last year. His history is a little bit of a concern. He has had some standout time in the NHL, and then at times he's looked like a very average NHL player. But I think the good news and the reason to be encouraged about Kuzmenko is he's being put in a great position to succeed. He's on a line with a future Hall of Fame center and an elite winger. And I'd be willing to bet that this is the best two forwards he's ever played with in his career. And if it isn't, it's got to be right there. So also factor in, he's on a 1-year deal. Players oftentimes motivated by contracts, and understandably so. So he needs to prove it this season. And if he does, maybe he gets a decent payout at the end of it. So if Andrei Kuzmenko can be the player we saw he was with the LA Kings last season, I think that Kopitar line has a really good chance to be a very, very good line. Up next, we'll talk about the line that might really be the Kings' top line. That's next here on Locked on LA Kings, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com and you'll get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, we've looked at the Kings' top line on paper, but the Kings' true top line in terms of minutes and maybe in production could very well be the Byfield line. Quentin Byfield centering Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere, a talented trio of players with two up-and-comers and one elite, skilled but sometimes inconsistent sniper. Let's start with Quentin Byfield. Of all the if players on the Kings, Byfield is probably the biggest one, but not biggest in terms of not knowing. I think just biggest in terms of the role that he could play on the team. And I think we all should have a decent amount of confidence in Quentin Byfield taking that next step. There's a usual progression with all players, and I think Byfield has been progressing. If you look at just the numbers, you may not agree with that, but again, considering how young he is, his experience, switching positions, I do think there has been progress there. But I think we all can agree that this season is an important season in the progression for Quentin Byfield. Now, the big question is this going to be the season, or will it be next season? I think we're all confident it's going to happen, but is it going to happen this year? He should be better in his second full NHL season at center. He should be better overall. Now his third full NHL season. It's time, I think. Now, is he ready to ascend to a borderline elite player? Not sure about that, but I think he can maybe scratch the surface on that. The skills are elite. We've talked about it. He's a bit of a unicorn. It's why the Kings drafted him number 2 overall. The skating ability to go along with that wingspan and that frame. It's not something that comes along very often. And I do think being selected to go to that Canadian Olympic orientation camp, I think it's a great sign that it's not just Kings fans or the Kings that can see this potential, but obviously others are seeing it as well. He's not likely going to be a Canadian Olympic member this year, but it's pretty clear that they feel down the road he can be that kind of a player. He's improved defensively. He's improved offensively. He can be a playmaker. Just need the consistency. And I think you could say that also about his two line mates as well. Kevin Fiala has the skills to be elite, but he can't be so much up and down. Like Byfield, Fiala didn't have the greatest start to last season, but like Byfield, he came on later in the season, showed when he's on his game, he can be a very dangerous player. I don't think anyone questions his abilities. He's got an elite shot. He's got elite hands. He's a great skater. He's got good instincts. It's just about forcing things and understanding when something's there and when something is not there. When to be patient, when to be aggressive. Fiala and Byfield, I think, also need to develop some chemistry, work off each other, be a duo that really can drive plays for the LA Kings. And there's also an if with Alex Laferriere. Can he have a consistent season? Now, unlike Fiala and Byfield, Laferriere started great, but then faded in the second half. He still showed improvement over his numbers from a pretty good rookie season the year before, and he should only get better. His numbers should increase. I think a full season with Byfield and Fiala, certainly it's a great opportunity for Alex Laferriere. I think he can complement their abilities. He's a guy that's willing to do a bit more of the dirty work, I think, by going to the net. Not that Fiala and Byfield don't do that, but I think Laferriere is a little bit more being called upon to have that kind of role. I think he can draw defenders to him. I think he can go in there and get rebounds and deflections and just provide a little bit of a different element than that line. Now, if the Byfield line can be more consistent, And if these three players can put a full solid season together, they could very well be the Kings' best line and be a big key to the LA Kings having a strong season and hopefully what we all hope is a deeper run in the postseason. The Kings' third line, I think, is pretty solid if Trevor Moore can have a bounce back season. Now, that is, of course, the line of Philip Deneau, Warren Foegele, and Trevor Moore. They can definitely provide some much needed energy, some much needed secondary scoring. Deneau is solid, not offensively spectacular. I do think he can do better than I believe his 8 goals a season ago. He should be somewhere around 12, 15 goals, but he does provide solid offense, and he's got a good enough all-around game just to be a very solid third-line center, veteran guy, been there, done that, does a little bit of everything very well. Obviously responsible defensively, good in the face-off circle. Warren Foegele had a great first season in LA. Was hard not to be a player that you really liked watching play. The energy he brings, and also showing that his career year, his final year in Edmonton, wasn't a fluke because he bested all those numbers in his first year as a King. Love the energy in his game. It's there night in and night out, but also the production is very solid, especially for a third line player. 24 goals, 46 points. Yeah, we'll take that. And I don't have much concern at all when it comes to Warren Foegele and what he's going to bring. I am also optimistic about Trevor Moore. Now, some were calling for him to be traded last year. I get it. I can understand why some people would be skeptical about his 31 goals the season before last, that was a career year. He's never going to be able to repeat that again. Maybe so. But I also think that he is going to have a bounce back season. I think he is better. He is a more productive player than we saw last season. He did look a lot better towards the end of last season. Hopefully he can carry that over into the start of this year. I think there are a few guys that need to kind of get off the good starts. I think Kuzmenko is one of them. I think Quentin Byfield's one of them. I think Trevor Moore is another one of those guys. They need to get off the good starts and just start feeling good kind of about their game from the very start. But again, 18 goals last year for Trevor Moore. I'm thinking he's going to get in the 20s. I think maybe around 25 goals. If there's one player I feel like is going to have a pretty good bounce back season, for whatever reason, I'm feeling Trevor Moore's the guy. Like I said, I liked the way he came on late last year. We know he's got the ability. When you see Trevor doing those stops and starts and handling the puck, getting the cycle going, that's when you know he's really on his game. We saw that towards the end of last year. So the Kings' third line, I think, again, to use the word solid over and over, I think they can be a very solid third line. Like I said, Deneau, reliable veteran, Foegele always bringing the energy, going to the net, being aggressive. And then Trevor Moore, he's an elite guy that can score when he's on his game. And I'm looking for him to have a bounce back season. So I feel the third line is pretty solid again. That again is if Trevor Moore can get that bounce back season. The Kings' fourth line is probably the most improved, yet still has the biggest question mark of all the 4 lines. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. We're wrapping up our look at the Kings' projected forward lines for next season with a line that is probably the most improved, but also with the one spot in the lineup that looks to be up for grabs, potentially. Now, that's the Kings' new fourth line. We've got veteran Corey Perry and Joel Armia on the wings. And who's going to center this line? Will it be Alex Turcotte? Will it be Samuel Helenius? I don't know. Maybe the Kings coaching staff, I would assume, maybe has a better idea. Both players, I think, bring different tools to their game and to what they can provide. But there's no doubt that the 2 veteran guys on the wings make this fourth line better than it was a year ago. Veteran leadership, experience, some physicality, some size, and proven playoff performers. Now, after the playoffs, the Kings, of course, had the issues with their bench. Jim Hiller didn't trust the fourth line. It seemed to wear out the top 6 because they were playing too much. Bringing in Perry, bringing in Armia, that should provide Jim Hiller with the confidence that he can be more open to using his fourth line more and not overwork some of his top 6 players. Perry and Armia are slotted where they are on the wings. I don't think there's nothing to be said there. That's where they're going to play. But we don't know who is going to be the center. It's probably the only competition that the Kings have going into this season. Everything else looks like it's set. Is it going to be, though, Alex Turcotte or Samuel Hellenius? The two have some similarities and also some big differences. Well, they're both young. Hellenius is 22, Turcotte's 24. But Turcotte, a much smaller player at 5'9", certainly quicker and faster. Hellenius, though, 6'6", 200 pounds, obviously bigger and stronger. Turcotte is also not shy about being physical, but he has had some injury issues as well, and you kind of worry about him throwing the body around a little bit because of that. Hellenius, though, is like a tree out there with skates. There's got to be some intimidation factor when you see that guy coming down on you, and he's one of those guys that, and there's not many on the Kings that will drop the gloves if necessary. Now, what are the Kings and their coaching staff looking for from the top line center position? Is it the offensive punch? If that's the case, then it seems like Turcotte would be the guy. 9 goals for 25 points in 68 games last season. Obviously much better numbers than Hellenius, who had only 7 points in 50 games. However, Turcotte did see some time on the top line. He kind of floated around where he was needed, where Hellenius was only on the fourth line, and it was his complete rookie season. He had no NHL experience before last year, so you cut him a little bit of a slack that, he's trying to learn the game at the highest level. Now, Turcotte has been around a little bit more. He has exactly double the experience of Hellenius. Hellenius 50 games, Turcotte 100 games exactly in his NHL career. So if the Kings are looking again for the more offensive side of a threat at the center position at the fourth line, that's Turcotte. But if they're looking for more physicality, then I think clearly that's Samuel Hellenius. In 50 games, Hellenius had 150 hits. Turcotte played more games and had 46. So there's no question that if you're looking for the physical edge for the hitting, Samuel Hellenius definitely has the edge there. Now, who would be able to mesh better with those two veteran wingers in Perry and Armia? Well, in terms of offense, I think you would have to go with Alex Turcotte. But again, if you're looking for that fourth line to be more of a grind line to kind of wear down the opponents, get the forecheck going, then it seems like Hellenius might be the better option. As far as faceoffs go, Turcotte 45.5% in the faceoff circle. Hellenius surprisingly was better a little bit, 46.8%. I say surprisingly because as someone who's taken some faceoffs, albeit at a very low level of hockey, the lower you can get to the ice and the puck when it's dropped usually gives you an advantage. Hellenius is so big and tall. We would think that would be something that would be difficult for him, whereas Turcotte is smaller, closer to the ice, but maybe Hellenius' strength is a bigger factor in him winning faceoffs a little bit more often than Alex Turcotte. So if you're asking me to kind of handicap it going into the preseason, I would think Turcotte might have a little bit of an upper leg, but we'll see. I think the preseason games, if they're going to be important to anyone as far as position battles, that's the one that seems to be the most important. Who's going to be the fourth line center? Is it Alex Turcotte? Is it Samuel Hellenius? We'll see. Like I said, I think Turcotte probably has a bit of an edge, but I think there is a competition. I think there is an opportunity there for Samuel Hellenius. If he can have a really good camp and a strong preseason, that job might be available to him as well. I think it's also a situation for Turcotte. There's going to be bumps and bruises throughout the year. Turcotte can play center. He can play on the wing. He's versatile. He can move around. Maybe the Kings want to kind of save him for that kind of utility man position. I don't know. We'll see. But again, that's the one thing we're looking at. That's the one if on the fourth line as far as who's going to be the center. Now, all of this might seem like a lot of ifs when it comes to the Kings forward group. being a very, very good group without a true elite center, with all due respect to Adrian Kempe. Now, if Kuzmenko can be that right fit on the top line, then that's an if that will go the Kings' way. If Kopitar still has one more good year left in him, if Byfield, Fiala, and LaFerriere can be more consistent, if Trevor Moore can bounce back, I actually see this group being a really solid group of forwards for the Kings. And again, it might seem like a lot of ifs, but I don't think any of those ifs are wishful thinking. I could legitimately see all those things happening. I don't think it's a big stretch to see Andrei Kuzmenko be what he was last year for the Kings. I don't think it's that big of a stretch to expect Anze Kopitar to still be good and productive. I don't think it's that big of a stretch to think that Byfield and Fiala and LaFerriere can step up just that little bit more than they were a year ago. And I don't think it's that big of an if for Trevor Moore to bounce back from what wasn't his best season. So again, is it a lot of ifs? Yeah, but I don't think any of them are outrageous. I don't think any of them are, just wishing something will happen. I think you can legitimately see reasons why all those things can happen. And if they do, then again, I think this is a really strong, not elite as far as some of the individual talent, but a really strong group that the LA Kings have put together. But there is another big if that you can never factor in, and that is if the Kings can stay healthy. No long-term injury issues, certainly to the top six. If that happens, then there's going to be some issues. But if history's any indication, if you look at the games played specifically for last season, a lot of these guys played 80, 81, 82 games. Even guys like Corey Perry, who are, 40 years old. So there's a good sign that recent history says these guys can play the great majority of the season, and there's no real injury history. Alex Turcotte, probably the only guy who does have that a little bit, but even I believe he played in the 70s last year as far as games played. So we'll see. Hopefully that's an indication that, the Kings were very, very healthy last year in their forward group, and hopefully that'll be the case again. If again, I'm optimistic that this group 1 through 4, these lines can be very, very solid lines for the LA Kings. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, do you agree or disagree with my optimism about our forward group? We will, of course, have our fan feedback show at the end of the week and give you your chance to chime in on that topic and the other things we're going to talk about this week as well. You can send your comments to the email address lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. If you're watching on YouTube, we welcome your feedback in the comments section as well. And we would love for you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.